What up is Marcus with Dynasty Fun Dads. We have a interesting video here today. We have the toughest person I think to gauge in the dynasty football realm of value. And so that person is Elijah Mitchell. We're going to talk about Elijah Mitchell, and I'm going to give you this little excerpt of 10 months ago, what I said about Elijah Mitchell. So let's go to that first. Darius Slaytons and stuff like that. It's rare, but you have to throw some darts at it. My number 2 is going to be a running back from, again, a small school, Louisiana Lafayette, Elijah Mitchell. So Elijah Mitchell, again, if you were talking about somebody that is even closer to James Robinson than Jarrett Patterson, because Jarrett Patterson's a smaller, like, 195 back. We're talking about a guy who is that James Robinson size. He is 5'11". I think they said like 215. He is 3.5 yards. All right, so as you see, I loved Elijah Mitchell. That video was 10 months ago, and a guy out of Louisiana Lafayette, again, but drafted after Trey Sermon. They traded up to get Trey Sermon in that third round. Elijah Mitchell dropped a couple rounds later, and so that really kind of devalued Elijah Mitchell. We saw how bad Trey Sermon was when he had that limited time, but he was also hurt. So where do we put Elijah Mitchell? Where is his value? That is the biggest question. And I think there's a couple things that we have to look at. Let's start with Elijah Mitchell. 963 yards on 207 attempts. That's 4.7 average, which is a good average. That's an average that we do like to see. He also had 5 touchdowns, so lower on the touchdown scale here. And so when we look at everything, let's look at basically competition in the backfield. And when you look at the other running backs, you have Trey Sermon, you have Raheem Mostert, which probably will be gone. You maybe have Jeff Wilson, but he might be gone. So you have a lot of running backs, a lot of different variabilities. And when I relate him to a James Robinson type, I feel like they have to, again, in this middle round, 3 to 6, I think they're going to draft another running back, or they're going to have a veteran. And that veteran, who knows? Maybe it's Mark Ingram. Maybe it's somebody along those types that is still kind of trucking along, because Elijah Mitchell can't take the entire brunt of carries. We saw Elijah Mitchell did break down some into the season, so that was a concern. But the biggest concern, in my opinion, is it's a two-part concern. It's not even the running back position itself, and I'll tell you where I have him ranked in my dynasty rankings as of today. But we're going to get to that. It's Trey Lance overtaking Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's Deebo Samuel in the backfield. Deebo Samuel, as you saw, was a really good type, kind of running back type. He's basically the Jamal Williams to like an Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, of course, a later pick than Jamal Williams. But basically, Deebo Samuel is a running back that's a wide receiver, kind of a little bit of everything. And Trey Lance concerns me because he is one of the most mobile quarterbacks that we have that could start in the NFL. And you have to assume, and what is it? They say if you assume, you're making an ass out of you and me. But you have to predict that they're going to have him start at some point. You can't have Jimmy Garoppolo continue to be the quarterback, and you trade up and trade everything you possibly can for Trey Lance and then not start him for 2-3 years. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like the Jordan Love thing, at least that was the end of the first round, so that would make more legitimate sense. But you have to assume that Elijah Mitchell could have some risk with A, injury, B, Deebo, C is Trey Lance. And so where do I have him in the realm of dynasty rankings? I have him at RB18. He's right around that Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery area. And the reason why he is so high is A, he's 23 years young, and that's really nice for a dynasty asset, especially as a running back. But number 2 is he passes that eye test. And so maybe the analytics and maybe some of the competition might say, a little bit worrisome. He passes the eye test, and they are a great running team. You have Kyle Shanahan, who shows that whoever the San Francisco starting running back is on a week-to-week basis, doesn't matter who it is, if it's Hasty, if it's Jeff Wilson, if it's Raheem Mostert, if it's literally anybody, that person will have value. So I think Elijah Mitchell is, if you told me I have Elijah Mitchell, or I have to have, where would he rank even in the 2022 rankings? I'd have him, of course, probably behind Breece Hall, probably behind Isaiah Spiller. I would probably have him behind the big three, the 3 running backs this year. But besides that, again, Elijah Mitchell, easy RB4 if he was in the 2022 class, we'll just say, if we knew where he was at today. Of course, that's a huge assumption. Again, another assumption. But Elijah Mitchell, RB18, I have him, again, ahead of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, is a frustrating player because you look at Kansas City and you go, Jerick McKinnon, he was 29 years old, coming off an ACL injury a couple of years ago and has not been necessarily relevant the last couple of years, is still being outperformed by Jerick McKinnon. And so that is why I even have, I mean, it's crazy to think, and that's why Dynasty football is so fun. But even as you saw in the video in the beginning, you never know, like you can predict like success for a player, but you don't know exactly how much success they can truly have. And so Elijah Mitchell is a top 20 running back. And so what you could see out of Elijah Mitchell is the James Robinson trajectory. You could see him be this RB1 next year. But what you could also see is San Francisco or, again, the competition kind of take over that realm. And Elijah Mitchell is stuck at being a RB2 or a lower RB2, and maybe Trey Sermon comes in and they try to give him some more carries because they're like, well, we traded up for him. We have to try to use him. And so you might see Trey Sermon more into next year as well. Hopefully not as like a goal line back. I think Trey Sermon would be that kind of goal line type running back because Elijah Mitchell is not huge by any means, but you're talking about the visual passing the test. If you watch the playoffs at all, I did. Debo looked amazing. I mean, the San Francisco's weapons, I mean, they have really good weapons. I mean, I think Ayuk has definitely grown. Debo has been amazing. Kittle has been amazing. And Elijah Mitchell has been amazing. So, again, one of the toughest players to gauge. And what we're going to be doing this next week or two is we're going to be going through a couple other tough players to project and rank right now, and then we're going to be going through again some more rankings. We've already done the top 20, but we're going to be going through 21 through 30. If you want the whole Deep Sleepers video that I did 10 months ago, I will try to post that into the description box so you guys can go back and see I think it's Jaret Patterson, Elijah Mitchell, and I can't remember the third running back, but those were two of the three. And you could say Jaret Patterson had a okay year, considering that he was a backup for Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick, RB basically three on that team. I thought he had an okay year. And we look at Elijah Mitchell, and he had a fabulous year. I wonder who the third running back is. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But I guess you'll just have to watch and look. And maybe we'll come up with some deep sleepers here in about 2 months or a month and a half here, so then you guys can prepare and dominate your leagues. All right, this is Marcus Nice with that. Peace out. Take care.